Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. A couple days ago, the church put out this broadcast. This is the 150th anniversary of Young Men Organization event with Elder Anderson, and then you have President Lund. And there's a really good Rising Generation and Second Coming quote that came from this that I put on my spreadsheet. I'm going to read that in just a minute. But first, I want to go to this newsroom article because there's something I want to point out. Okay, so as Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery were translating the Book of Mormon, they came across passages about baptism and the authority to administer it. Wanting to learn more, they went into the nearby woods to pray. In answer to their prayer, John the Baptist, a resurrected being, appeared on May 15th, 1829. Pay attention to that date. And ordained Joseph and Oliver to the Aaronic priesthood, setting forth the keys and powers as recorded in Doctrine and Covenants 13. The exact location of the sacred event is not identified, but Elder Anderson, President Lund, and two young men, Young and Winkle, reflected on what happened as they stood in a grove of trees near the restored home of Joseph and Emma Smith. And I know eventually I'm going to make it out there. I'm doing my new channel called Explore Church Sites, and I'm trying to go everywhere, not just here in Missouri, but Nebraska, Illinois, going to be going to Utah in October, and I want to go back to Kirtland. But anyway, okay, so this broadcast is for the 150th anniversary of the Young Men Organization. So we have 150 years of that. And then it turns out that last year was the 195th anniversary of the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood. Okay. And then coming up next year, we have America's 250th anniversary. And then in 2030, we have the bicentennial of the church. So we have a lot of big milestones that are happening, within this next several years, 10 years, right? And one thing that I thought about, potentially both for the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood, but also in the lead up to the 150th anniversary of the Young Men Organization, is something that happened last year. It's been a little while since we've talked about this, but there's this CNN article. This is from May 9th, 2024. The U.S. is in the middle of an exceptional tornado streak. Here's what it looks like. And then the article starts out like this. It started in Utah, of all places. A whirling tendril of air descended from a roiling sky above a southwest suburb of Salt Lake City, punctuating the horizon. It was a tornado, the first of many over the course of weeks. A tornado frenzy is ongoing in the United States. At least one has been reported every day since the morning of April 25th in Salt Lake City. A more than 2-week streak, and there have been hundreds. April and May are typically the busiest months for tornadoes in the U.S., Earth's tornado epicenter, but the pace since April has been exceptional. Yeah, last year was a big year for tornadoes. Now, the interesting thing about this and why I'm bringing this up is, as you can see here, this is NOAA's National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center. And you see this these red dots represent tornadoes. And you have this first one that happened in Utah. And if you go down here, it is the first one. You can see the time stamps right here. So this happened in the city of Harriman in Salt Lake County. This was the first one that started this streak. You can go day by day, just look for the red dots, and every single day there are red dots. And guess how long the streak went for? It was a 20-day streak that ended on the 15th of May. Right here, the 15th of May. Or in other words, the anniversary of the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood. And in that year, it happened to be the 195th anniversary. It still blows me away. I count this as a church-specific sign. Now, up until this point, I've had it on my spreadsheet called signs, tornadoes. And for some reason, I until today, I hadn't put it on my other spreadsheet called Signs Church Specific. But here you have it right here. I don't know what it means, but it feels like it's highlighting the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood. And this year, we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Young Men organization. It just, at the very least, it feels like the Lord is highlighting this period of time. I feel like that's so unlikely that a tornado streak would start in Utah and end the day of the anniversary of the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood. I have a bunch of other wind and tornado events on here. In 2023, we had the derecho that hit Nauvoo, and there was this miracle that happened where there was this youth group that was doing a pioneer trek, and they made it to safety just in time. I've done a video about that and interviewed one of the ladies that was involved in that. We had, at the beginning of my channel, there was another tornado near Salt Lake. This was North Salt Lake City, which happens to be where Elder Dean Davies was from. He had passed away, and 2 days later, there was a tornado where he's from. I've talked about that before, but I'm not going to go into it too much now. Going back to 1999, August 11th, we had the downtown Salt Lake tornado. This was just a few months before the beginning of this new millennium, the year 2000. And I know about 2001, just don't even bring it up. And then we have this from 1994. This was an unusual derecho, which is basically hurricane force winds, that went through Utah and up into Wyoming the day after President Ezra Taft Benson passed away. So, and I have all these other things. I'm just kind of pointing out some of the wind events, but it's clear to me that the Lord does give us signs. He gives signs to the world. He gives signs to the United States, to the Jews, and he has signs that I think are specific to our church. So again, when I see this and I think about what happened last year and these significant anniversaries, 195th, 150th, yeah, I think something is going on. I think at the very least, it's a major milestone. Okay, so what did he say? We're going to go over to my spreadsheet called Quotes, Rising Generation. I could put this on my Second Coming spreadsheet, but there are so many of these that I feel like they merit their own spreadsheet. And there's also these other things that I'm keeping track of over here, like President Nelson's age and the age of Israel and some other stuff. So that's why this has a separate spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the quote. If you want to watch this yourself, you can find it at the 39-minute and 17-second mark of this video. I'll put a link for it in the description box below. But he says, "Remember, you are a chosen generation. You're perhaps the most remarkable generation that's been upon the earth. You're here with us, but we're much older than you are, to prepare the world for the time the Lord comes back and for the second coming." Before I continue, whenever we're talking about generational quotes, there's a couple things. One is people will, for whatever reason, have like an issue with these quotes and want to make it seem like it doesn't apply to the youth of today. So a couple things will typically happen. Sometimes I'll get comments that say, well, remember, a generation can be defined in different ways. And I guess sometimes, but I feel like more times than not, prophets and apostles and general authorities of our day speak very clearly and plainly. And in this case, he says he differentiates himself from the generation he's speaking to. He's talking to the youth of right now. You are here with us, but we're much older than you are. And yes, to help prepare for the second coming, but he's really emphasizing here that you guys, think about it. You are younger than us, and who's more likely to see the second coming or maybe play a more substantial role in the second coming and the beginning of the millennium? You. We're older than you. You still have a long ways to go. I feel like that's why he's saying that right there. And then secondly, So that's one thing. It's like, well, there's different, definitions for generations. And yeah, that's true. That's true. But with all these quotes that I'm reading right here, I don't feel like that's the spirit in which these are being said. The other thing that gets brought up time and time again, there's always at least one person that says, oh, they've always been saying that. And I don't know if people that say that, they're the same type of person that say, oh, they've always been talking about the second coming ever since Jesus' time. But the thing is, I don't want to sound prideful here, but I've put in the work. I've been doing this for almost 4 years now. In August, it'll be 4 years. I've had thousands of emails sent to me and even more comments in the comments section. And I've been doing this full time, literally full time. And I have found a lot of Rising Generation quotes, but guess what? I don't have any before 1966, with the exception of one from Joseph Fielding Smith, where he loosely speculates that he thinks that there are some living back then in 1936 that would live to see the second coming. And then I have a prophecy of Joseph Smith. And this is typically where people say, well, there's different definitions of, what a generation means. But I challenge you, if you have any other Rising Generation quotes before 1966, please send it my way and I'll add it to the spreadsheet. I get annoyed because people just wave this off like it's out of, frankly, I think sometimes it's out of laziness. It's like you think, especially if you're older, you think, oh, I've heard that all growing up. Have you? Where's your list? Do you have a list that you can send me? Can you point me to some of these quotes? What I have collected here are very explicit quotes. That means very on the nose. And as far as I can tell, it really only started in 1966, but then it's really taken off since President Nelson's time as president of the church. Like, really. So, going back to this, let's just start over. Remember, you are a chosen generation. You're perhaps the most remarkable generation that's been upon the earth. You're here with us, but we're much older than you are, to prepare the world for the time the Lord comes back and for the second coming. You're here to bear up the priesthood and to hold up the kingdom of God. It's been many years since I've received the Aaronic priesthood. I've had a prophet of God put his hands upon my head and ordain me to the office of apostle, something I never could have imagined or anticipated. But it has brought me the assurance, the sureness, the absolute knowledge, which I'm debating maybe I should put this on my spreadsheet for the quotes A through Z spreadsheet under the topic of appearances to church leaders, because I don't know. The reassurance, the sureness, the absolute knowledge that these things which were growing in me as a young man are true. Absolutely true. Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. Now, I highlighted this part, something I never could have imagined or anticipated, because he sandwiches that by talking about the second coming here and then over here. And so it makes me think that that might be the context in which he's saying that. If you're a young man or just a youth in general hearing this, you're thinking about the second coming, and then he's telling you about how, hey, I never thought I would be an apostle. Well, if you're thinking about yourself as a youth, you might apply that to yourself and be like, I never thought that I would see the second coming. Or in the millennium, I think a lot of people will be surprised at the things that they're called to do. Because like I've said in other videos, at least in the beginning of the millennium, we are going to be far outnumbered by new converts in the church. We've talked about the big influx that's expected at the beginning of the millennium. And I really do think that virtually all of us here today are probably going to have to step up and assume leadership positions and do things that you never could have imagined or anticipated. There may be more, I'm not so sure if there'd be more priesthood offices that are revealed in the future, but there may be new positions, new organizational structures of the church that we don't have right now. There may be some thing like, we right now we have branches and districts, wards and stakes, and then we have areas of the church. But there could be more organizations that are brought to light in the millennium that will need leadership. And maybe you'll be in charge of one of those things. So anyway, that's where my mind went. Okay. Continuing, he appeared to the prophet Joseph Smith. He is resurrected. He guides his holy work upon the earth today, and he is coming again. And we of the priesthood, we must take on our responsibility in our covenants, as Preston said, and be who we should be. We love you. We're very proud of you. We have never seen a better group, a better generation, as they prepare to serve missions and to become the fathers and priesthood holders of the world. We admire you, and we are so glad to be associated with you. You of all cultures, of all nations, of all situations, we love you, and we are part of you. We are your fellow servants, just like John the Baptist said to Joseph Smith and Oliver. And I give you my firm witness, my true witness. I am his witness that he lives. The Son of God lives. Jesus Christ lives. And we will all be before him again. Can you let me know in the comments below? Do you think I should add this to my collection of quotes of like pretty explicit quotes saying that an apostle or a prophet or apostle like really has seen Christ? Because I feel like he's being very repetitive here and very clear that he really has seen Christ. Let me know if you think I should add this to that collection or not. Okay, and then to finish off, I just want to point out a few other quotes that are on here. These are quotes, the likes of which we have not seen even a few decades ago, even after 1966. It seems like as time goes on, they become more and more clear, on the nose, explicit. We have this one from Elder Ronald A. Rasband, Young Adult English Area Devotional, January 9th, 2022. He said, May Christ lift thee up, as it says at the close of the Book of Mormon, in that it will be a real experience in your life and will sustain you in your times of trouble. Now, really quick, he's referring to, if you look at the footnotes, I think it's the very last paragraph, it takes you to the New Testament scripture. I think in 1 Thessalonians, it talks about being caught up, the dead being resurrected and caught up, as well as the living that are alive on the earth at the time being caught up to be with Christ when he comes. And you might ask, well, he says in your times of trouble. Again, the millennium is not heaven. It's not the celestial kingdom. It's still probation. There's still going to be trials and things that we'll have to go through. It's going to be much better than what we're living in right now, but there's still going to be trials and things like that. So I don't think that it's over once we reach the millennium. All right, continuing. May you be guided by the things of your soul, that you'll be prepared to join with the hosts of heaven when the Savior returns. That you will know him as the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, the Prince of Peace. So he's talking to the youth and he's like, be ready to be lifted up and have this experience, and it'll carry you through in the future through hard times or trials. And that it's going to be a real experience in your life. Okay, and then we have this one from Stephen J. Lund. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I've read this a million times, but he tells the story of being called to be the Young Men General President. And at this part, this is what President Nelson said. Well, it's important that you're here, and it's important that you understand this, because this is a very important time for the church. We're in the end of times here. And this is a very important time for the youth of the church. Then he stood up and he walked behind his chair and says, I've called them. I've invited them to serve in the Lord's battalions. And I said, Yes, President Nelson, I know that you have, and I know that they're listening. And he said, well, I hope so. I know that many are because this is such an important time of gathering, and the opportunity for them to be engaged in that work of gathering has never been like this before. Later on, he talked to me about the final work of the gathering and his deployment of the youth of the church to make that happen. This thing that has been talked about by apostles and prophets for so long as there have been people on this earth, looking forward to the end game, when the earth will be rolled up like a scroll and the Savior will come again. And as I walked out of that room, just with his intense understanding and knowledge confirmed to me by the Spirit that I share with you, and that is that he's coming. He really is, and it's imminent. I don't know what that means. All I know is that there's a sense of urgency about the brethren. Okay, and then just a couple more. This one is from General Conference time. So this was just a few months after President Nelson became president of the church, his first General Conference as president of the church. He's being interviewed by KSL News. This is on their YouTube channel. And he says, I think the young people of the church are the finest that have ever been on planet Earth. They've come with that special equipment that God has reserved for the wind-up scene prior to his second coming. And then in this one, this was just a little while before he became president of the church. He was president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This was a BYU Hawaii devotional, January 10th, 2016. The name of the talk is Becoming True Millennials. And I'm just going to read this part right here. When I pray about you and ask the Lord how he feels about you, I feel something far different from what the researchers say. Spiritual impressions I've received about you lead me to believe that the term millennial may actually be perfect for you, but for a much different reason than the experts may ever understand. Later on, he says, I'm going to read this. A true millennial is a man or woman who lives now to prepare the people of this world for the second coming of Jesus Christ and his millennial reign. Make no mistake about it. You were born to be a true millennial with an uppercase T. So all this leads me to believe, as we keep collecting quotes and they just keep coming, that we really are close. And one evidence of that is the fact that we have the greatest generation of youth that the church has ever seen, that the world's ever seen. And it's because they're helping us during this time to prepare for the second coming by going on missions and fulfilling their callings and their missions in life. But like others have said, like I have this quote, sorry, I wasn't planning on sharing this, but like I have this one from J. Annette Dennis. She kind of repeated this 2 times, but she talks about the fact that when it's the end of the game, the coach sends in his best players. In those pivotal moments, a coach will put in his best players on the field, the players he has the most confidence in. Like those players in the last minutes of a game, today's covenant sons and daughters have been sent to earth in the final part of the latter days. The final part. So, okay. Well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.